Hey girls and gals, welcome back to my channel. My name is Taylor and today's video is going to be another weekly reading vlog. As you've already seen, we started out this vlog with a little bit of b-roll because yesterday was Valentine's Day. So I spent a lot of time just hanging out with my partner, with my dogs, and then also just doing a bunch of little self-care things and just enjoying like the pastel pinkish Valentine's Day sort of vibes. So, you know, just little self-care things because we didn't go too crazy for Valentine's Day this year just because we are in like a period of trying to save money, but we had a lot of fun, you know, little things like I did a face mask and I watched some of The Love Witch, and I have to say that one, I haven't finished it, but I think the aesthetics are absolutely gorgeous. Like the way that they filmed it like a 60s movie and like the color grading and everything like that, super cool. I don't know if I'm loving it, but it was like a very fun like Halloween sort of movie to watch. So I watched a little bit of The Love Witch, and then my book that I was reading yesterday was Bride by Ali Hazelwood. This is out of my comfort zone, but you know, I thought why not, right? It's from the library. I have heard so many people absolutely love Ali Hazelwood's books, and you know, I like vampires, I like vampire fiction. I don't normally go for like paranormal romance vampire fiction, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes. I made it to chapter 5, and you know, this is we're following a young vampire, a vampire named Misery, and she, in order to like broker a peace between her people and the werewolves, or they're called were in this, marries the alpha of the werewolf pack, and it's gonna be like a marriage of convenience, kind of enemies to lovers sort of situation, I'm guessing. We'll see how it goes. Definitely not my usual, but you know, I figured I would go ahead and give it a chance. I also think the blurbs on the back of this book are absolutely wild, because what other book would you have Jodi Picoult and Ruby Dixon blurbing the same book, you know? So interesting time for this. And then the other book that I'm reading is Womb City by Tlotlo Tsamaase, and this one is like a sci-fi horror African futurist story where this is, I would say, The Handmaid's Tale meets Minority Report, because this is a futuristic society where a lot of women, you see that it's everyone in this society, but just the level of surveillance really falls upon women, falls upon disenfranchised people especially. This deals a lot with intersecting privileges and the ways in which, you know, certain aspects of who you are as a person can portray you further in society and get you further, and things that you were born with. It's a lot. It's a lot, both in the horror aspects and in the sci-fi aspects. This one definitely feels more like a hard sci-fi, if that makes sense. Like, it's not a space opera. There's a lot, and there's a lot of concepts where maybe like on the first page you're like, oh my gosh, what is all of this information? But if you keep reading, things gradually, you know, start to make sense to you, and you start to learn essentially how certain people in society, they've found a way to transport consciousnesses from one body to another. So what happens when a person doesn't deserve their body? They have found a way to take the soul out of a body and give the body to more deserving souls. And our main character has been implanted in a body. If you are one of these transplants, you are monitored by microchip. They monitor every single thing, not just like, you know, things that like an Apple Watch might monitor, like your heartbeat or where you're going even, but your very thoughts. And you can get in trouble for crimes that you have not committed, and the things that are considered as crimes or deviant behavior in the society is very, very interesting. So this one I'm also not too far into. I'm also following along with the audiobook. So I'm about 10% of the way through, page 65. This is wild, very trippy. Our main character Neela just wants to have a child, or does she? And she's in this loveless marriage. Her husband controls her through this microchip. He like checks in on her every morning to make sure that her thoughts are acceptable and that she's not in danger of hurting herself or others. It's a heavy one. It's a heavy one. I would say especially if you are trying to conceive or if you have experienced miscarriage. There's a lot of talk like that in here, so tread lightly if those are triggers for you. And then obviously just the body horror of it all, of being able to be ripped from who you are and be put into someone else. So what a ride. Definitely very different tones, although they do look good together. They've got like a red and black theme going on, but they look good together. They're very different vibes, but I think I'm enjoying both of them. I'd say this one, my jaw is on the floor for quite different reasons. With this one, why my jaw is on the floor when I'm reading these. So definitely an interesting reading experience, but wanted to come on here, introduce the vlog, say hey, give a reading update for what I'm reading currently, and I will talk to you all with another reading update a little bit later. Friends, happy Monday. This has been such a non-cohesive reading vlog, and for that I'm sorry. It's been a little bit of a week. It's also been a really strange reading week, just in terms of reading, because I don't think that I'm in a slump. However, it's just my reading is all over the place, and I do recognize because some of the books are not like in typical genres that I would normally read. So that might have something to do with it. I did actually pick up and read an entire book because I did have to return it to the library. So I didn't give any sort of reading update on that one, but I did start and finish Starling by Alix Harrow. This one's about a young woman named Opal who has lived in this town her whole life. It's in like mining country. It's in Kentucky. It's one of those small towns that like a big business, you know, has pretty much bankrupted the town, and it's just like not a great place to live. And the people who live there usually, whether they know it or not, are kind of stuck there just in terms of like their economic situation and the way that this oil and mining company is pretty much controlling all of the finances in the town, and simultaneously making the ecological and living conditions horrible for the town. Now, Opal is like in her early 20s. She is trying to make ends meet very desperately. She does not have a father. Like the father's never been in the picture, and her mother died tragically in an accident when she was young. Her and her little brother live at a motel, and they are just trying to make ends meet. Opal has worked worked so hard to not have like the system take her little brother away from her. So she is really living a paycheck to paycheck life. It's a life where she mentions, like at the very start of this, she used to be someone who believed in fairy tales, you know, and who loved looking for magic in the world. Like I feel like a lot of us do when we're children. And because of her circumstances, she has had to just grow up and really be like, you know, nose to the ground, eking out an existence for herself and her brother, just trying to keep them together and hopefully send him out of the town so that he can experience, you know, he can get a good education, he can leave the town. So she has no time for childish stories. But when she was little, she had very vivid dreams, very realistic. Oh, B. Sorry if my stand moved. My dog just wormed right on through it. When she was little, she had all of these really reoccurring, very vivid dreams about Starling House, which is what she believes to be an abandoned house, an abandoned mansion in her town. And it feels like something that she read in a book, like very much like a darker Alice in Wonderland sort of book. And then she has not had these dreams in years, but she starts having these dreams again. And when she goes to Starling House, she's just going to go just to kind of see the lay of the land. Why is she having all these dreams? And she involves herself with, there's actually someone who lives at Starling House, and she actually becomes a housekeeper at this house, looking for more information about why this house has featured so heavily in her dreams. And she's trying to uncover the secrets about the house. The secrets end up being not just things that she's dreamed about, but an actual dark fairy tale in the making. So this one was okay. This is one where the premise sounded like a 10 out of 10 to me, and I read it and it was okay. There's a V.E. Schwab book that came out 2 years ago, I think now, that has a similar premise about a girl who goes to a house and it's like a dark fairy tale. This book, Starling House, I think is executed more in the way that people were hoping that that one would be, if I remember correctly, because I read that one too and I thought the premise was better than the execution. I've noticed that this author is one where her premises always sound like 10 out of 10s to me, but I picked up Once and Future Witches quite some time ago now, I believe when it first came out, and I loved the premise. And as I was reading it, I didn't really care for the story and I didn't really care for just like the writing style. So I think it's me. I don't think it's the author. Like I think she comes up with really cool ideas, and just just something about it's just not like my kind of book, which is okay. I think a lot of people are gonna like this one. So if you like dark fairy tales, if you like the sort of Alice in Wonderland sort of story almost, where it's kind of based in reality, but you are kind of exploring, there's something underneath. This one I feel like, I feel like a wild thing to say for me, who's a speculative fiction reader first and foremost, but I thought the storylines, the non-fairy tale storylines, like with Opal trying to take care of her brother and the relationships and friendships and found family that she makes in this town, in this small town, I thought I enjoyed that better than actually like when we were discovering the mystery of Starling House. So yeah, if you like dark fairy tales, I think you could give this one a try. I know a lot of people love this author, and I feel like I should, just even reading like comp titles and then authors that have blurbed this author's books, I feel like I should, and it's a bummer that I don't. And that's not to say that I didn't like this book, because I did read all of it, I did enjoy it. I just don't think it's one that's going to stick with me for a long time, but that's the first reading update. I'm like 150 pages into Bride, and this is one that I'm contemplating DNFing, honestly, because, you know, I wanted to be a part of something, okay? I saw a lot of people reading this around Valentine's Day. I saw them really enjoying it, you know, and just for what it was, I'm not a big romance person, and I know this. Definitely not a contemporary romance reader. If it's romance, it's gotta be like a B plot instead of an A plot, if that makes sense. So, you know, I knew this is a gamble. I knew especially this was a gamble because the shifter and like the things that are supposed to be in this in terms of the spicy scenes of it all, and I haven't even gotten to those yet. I just really don't know how I'm feeling about this one, and I'm not craving to pick it up ever. The mystery aspect is cool. I think there's something to be there with the world building, which I'm not exactly sure. Is it supposed to be like our world where there's just vampires and werewolves? Because there are mentions to things that I feel like it is. but I don't know if it's supposed to be that or just like an, you know, alternate world where these things are happening. Here's the thing though, in this book, you know, it's supposed to be romance centric. It's not about like big like world building and really getting in depth into like the lore of it all and the world building and the magic systems and all of that. So I understand that that's not like a very fair critique to give of this book. I'm also just not sold on the main characters, and I feel like for me probably I'm going to have to really like love the main characters to root for their romance and to be invested in the story, and I'm not. So we'll see. This is definitely on the back burner. I don't usually when I DNF books, because I am comfortable DNFing books. It's not that I don't, but I usually DNF them a lot sooner than this. So 100 pages in, I don't know. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see where this one takes us. I don't know. This one might be a DNF. We'll just have to see. I'm also just over 100 pages in Womb City. I'm really enjoying this one. This one's just going to have to be a slow moving book for me, because not only is it like very complex, hard sci-fi. I don't normally read like science fiction like this. I normally tend to go for like space operas or more fantasy. Like this is heavy sci-fi. I don't generally read adult futuristic dystopias. This one's really good. So not saying that it's not good, but it's just I have to really focus. This one also is very, very hard to read. And it's very difficult, and it's very good. But as you can imagine from, I think I've talked about this one before in this vlog, how it's that mix of like A Handmaid's Tale and Minority Report. So it's heavy stuff. It's really heavy stuff. It is horror. I'd say, you know, there's a lot of, it's like a horror sci-fi, because this concept is horrific. Being anyone who is not a white straight man in this world where these things can happen is horrific, and that is hard to read from. That is very hard to read from. So this one's just slow going, because it's heavy, but it's so good. It's so good. So this is quite horrifying in the best possible way, and unfortunately my audiobook returned itself from the library. My hold on it was up, and that's been a bummer, because I was really, really loving just reading it physically while listening along with the audiobook. First of all, the narrator is really good. She has a very wonderful voice for this story, and that's been a bummer that got returned. So I'm like back on the waiting list for that, but I'm still making my way through this just slowly, just because this one also, I feel like if you are anyone with a uterus, if you are femme, if you are especially a woman or a femme of color, I think this is gonna be very triggering. This is gonna be very, very triggering. This is gonna be a very triggering book. So every time I read it, I am shocked and just disturbed, and I think it cuts deep, and I'm not even that much into it. I think this is about 400 pages, and I'm so nervous. I'm so nervous for Neela, our main character. I'm just it's stressful. It's stressful. It's good, but it's stressful. So that's this reading update. It's going well. It's going a little too well, but I'm taking my time with this one, just because the subject matter and just the sci-fi concepts, it's just, I'm working my way through that. This one though, I think once you get past like the first couple chapters and you really absorb and understand like the science and technology and the things that are implemented in day-to-day life in this world, once you get past that initial hump, like it's a very well laid out, well thought out, very horrifying world. So very much enjoying this one. I guess I could say, it feels weird saying enjoying it, but it's a ride that I'm here for. Just a heavy one. And then I know this update has been going on for quite a bit, but I do have 2 more books also to talk about. I haven't actually started either of them, but I am starting them both today. The first one is Midnight on Beacon Street by Emily Ruth Verona, and this one I also have as a Libby audiobook. So I will be primarily listening to it, but I do also have the physical copy from my library. So I'll be picking this up. This is, I believe, an ode to slashers, a love letter to vintage horror. Our main character, Amy, is a babysitter. She is watching after 2 kids, and I think a stranger comes. I think a stranger calls. I think this kind of feels like a lot of urban legends that we tell at like sleepovers. So this one says that the evening starts out normally enough with games, pizza, and dancing, but as darkness falls, events in this quiet suburban New Jersey home take a very unexpected turn, with strangers showing up at the door. We have mysterious phone calls, and I think there's going to be like a break-in situation. So this one's very short. I feel like it's going to be very speedy and fast-paced, and I'm looking forward to it. The tagline, one night, one house, one dead body. Okay. And this also has like a very vintagey kind of cover, which I'm excited about. So I'll be reading this one. That's like my horror pick, my audiobook pick of the week. And then I also need to start The Witchery by Isabelle. This one is more of like a paranormal story. It's not horror, it's more like a fantasy. I believe it takes place at like a school for witches, which is exciting. We're following 4 young witches at Mess Morte's Coven Academy, which sounds really fun. I think these books are going to balance out each other really well. We've got the speedy horror book, and then we have this one is a little bit longer, and we're going to have that paranormal witchy aspect. It's been a while since I've read a YA book, first of all, but then also a YA book about witches, really any sort of book about witches. So I'm excited. I'm excited to maybe fall in love with a new magical school. Fingers crossed. This looks very exciting. Sorry if the window light is making it a little hard to see. This one without glare, it's got that library cover on it, but I'm excited to pick this one up today as well. This one will primarily be my physical reading book for the week, for the day, who knows, we'll see. I'm gonna have a little bit more time to read today, which is exciting. And then this one will primarily be my audiobook. So it's a very lengthy update. Hopefully the next half of this vlog is gonna be a little bit more cohesive. Maybe depending on how much I read, maybe I'll give another update tonight, definitely one tomorrow, and then maybe one on Wednesday. I don't know, we'll have to see like how this vlog is shaping up, how long it is, etc. But yeah, hopefully I'm hoping that this week goes better than last week, but I am going to take like a quiet morning to myself, just a slow, relaxed, quiet morning, read some, hang out with the pups, and I will talk to y'all later with another reading update. Morning friends, a quick little before work update. Yesterday I had a whole lot of fun. I actually attended Kelsey's from Sweetie's reading sprints. It was my very first reading sprints that I've ever attended. Normally with like the creators I follow, like a lot of them don't work with my schedule, or just like I get very overwhelmed and intimidated with like live spaces and live events, even though like, you know, I'm just like a observer and I didn't even have to, you know, participate at all. But I get nervous sometimes. I'm just an introvert, even on the internet, but I had a lot of fun participating in those sprints, and I'm opening up my horizons to attending like more sprints from creators in the future, because it was a whole lot of fun and it was definitely so productive. I not only got some work done, but I did get a lot of reading done, and I managed to finish Midnight on Beacon Street by Ruth Verona, and I enjoyed this one. I do have to say that I think this one, I actually have read a very similar premised book by Stephen Graham Jones. The title is eluding me. I just looked it up. It's The Babysitter Lives, which is a very similar premise because it does also take place, I think that one in the 80s or 90s, and it's like an ode to classic horror, like the babysitter and small kids, and a sinister kind of force trope. And just because I've read that one like relatively recently for me, like I read it last year and I still do remember it very fondly. I think it was very wild and fascinating. I do think I like the execution of that one a little bit more, but if you read this and you're looking for something similar, or maybe you want this premise and you're waiting for your library holds to come in because this is a very new book, The Babysitter Lives by Stephen Graham Jones, that could be a good one to check out in the meantime. That one is way more like cosmic and paranormal. This one is more of a traditional slasher, so keep that in mind in terms of comparisons for the plot of this one. But I had a fun time reading this one. It was a lot of fun. I saw there have been like some negative reviews because people are saying like this is not a thriller, and it's not. I don't know who is marketing it as a thriller. I think I have seen on both like Goodreads and Storygraph that it says horror and thriller. This is not a thriller. This is a horror. This is short, but it's also like a character study as well. So if you go into it hoping for a twisty-turny thriller, you're going to be disappointed. So just know it's a horror novella. It's first and foremost kind of like an ode to those classic slasher movies. Our main character, also in a very like Stephen Graham Jonesy way, is obsessed with horror movies, and that kind of influences her thinking and the way that she perceives situations. So I did think this was a whole lot of fun. The thing that detracted most from my enjoyment of this was the fact that it like jumped backward and forward in time, where I just felt like, because this is so short, it is 192 pages, I feel like because I have read books like that jump around in timeline and that are very effective, but those are full-length books. So I think this one, it just was trying a little too much with that format and the story that were presented. I think this one actually would have worked a little bit better had it just been in a sequential narrative format and not jumping back and forth in time. But I did really enjoy this. I had a lot of fun, and I had a lot of fun reading it during the reading sprints. So done with that one. And then I also have gotten about 60 pages into the Witchery, and this one is a YA fantasy. We are following 4 young witches at Ms. Morte's Coven Academy. This academy is in a small town in Florida, and this is a world where people know that magic exists, and mundanes, or humans, and witches live together in kind of harmony in this town, with all of these young witches attending school. And then like the town as well kind of feels like a college town vibe, where it's like supplemented by the schools that are in the area. But we have this very like uneasy truce between the witches and the mundanes, but they do have to come together, I believe, every year during the haunting season, which is a curse that was put upon the town years and years ago, where wolves, magical wolves, come in from the surrounding forest and attack both mundanes and witches alike. So our 4 main characters are actually trying to figure out if there's a way to break this curse and make Halesford a safer place for both witches and mundanes. And I'm enjoying this one. I'm enjoying being in like a magical school. I think that setting's really cool. And as well, like the magic system. The magic system is not just like one magic system. There are different types of magic, and sometimes you're drawn to one inherently, but you don't have to do that one. Like you can pick whatever kind of magic that you want to specialize in. So we have like an herbologist witch and a death witch, and just a whole bunch of different kinds of witchery happening in here. This is definitely going to be my physical read. I did find the audiobook on Libby as well. I was kind of hoping to kind of switch off back and forth, but the audiobook, just because I feel like, maybe let me know if you're not the only one, because at 1x speed the narrator is fine. I usually listen to audiobooks on 1.5x speed, but the narrator, the cadence that she reads this book and the pace at which she reads this book, I like, even at 1.5 it feels very slow, but if you speed it up any more than that, it sounds so uneven, because it's not like the same pace every time, if that makes sense. So it's not the best audio reading experience. So I am diving into the physical book, and we'll just have to figure out another audiobook to read. But yeah, so that was my reading update. Read a fun slasher, and then also working my way through a fun little witchy read. And yeah, we'll see what else I get up to, but just wanted to come on, give a little reading update, and I will talk to y'all later on today.
Saturday, October 10, 1:34. A terrible mother.
Friends, let's talk about some reading updates. It is Thursday, and we're going into the weekend with a lot of books running concurrently on my TBR, on a list of books that I want to get to, want to read. If you've ever used Libby, you may be familiar with the phenomenon of I had at the beginning of this week 4 books checked out. And I do have a lot of holds. And you know, it's that phenomenon where every single hold comes in at once. And even when I delayed some of them, I still had a good amount that I wanted to check out and get to. So I have so many books that I need to get to. So yeah, it's a good problem to have. It's a great problem to have, but we're going to be readjusting the TBR a little bit. And also because I feel myself climbing out of the reading slump that I have managed to find myself in, because number 1, I finished Womb City by Tlotlo Tsamaase, and this one is so good. This one's so good. Highly recommend. I know I like said like Handmaid's Tale a little bit. However, I feel like Handmaid's Tale doesn't really fully describe, kind of thematically, but it doesn't describe like the sci-fi aspects of the story. So Minority Report, absolutely. Minority Report meets a little bit of The Matrix. This is very fast paced. I feel like this could be a limited edition series because there was some action. There was some action, and the majority of this book, at least over half of it, takes place within a span of 24 hours. So it is action packed, but it's also very like character focused at the same time in a very neat way. And the stakes could not be higher for Neela, our main character, and I just really enjoyed it. I know I mentioned, I think maybe at the beginning of this vlog, that at the beginning there's a lot. I don't normally read sci-fi, like high concept sci-fi or really heavy dystopian sci-fi, because I normally read, if I'm reading sci-fi, I'm normally reading like space operas. So this one, you know, I feel like this way as well though for like adult fantasy, you know, the first maybe 50 to 75 pages, just stick it out. You're learning, you're dropped into this new world, and well, it's our world, but in the future, and you're learning about all of this technology and all of these cultural things that are new because of this technology. And if you stick through like the world building and really take your time and understand the world that's being built up here, the rest of this is so action-packed. I could not stop reading this one. So I finished it. I really enjoyed it. I felt like every single aspect of this story was like wrapped up in such a satisfying way, and I really enjoyed this story. I'd also recommend kind of going into it knowing like a little bit about just the themes and the comp titles, because the actual event that kicks off a lot of the action in this doesn't happen until like the 200 page mark or something like that. So I feel like don't read the dust jacket. If you really want the full extent of the shock of that scene, just know going into it that this is a very heavy dystopian society where there's a certain group of people who can decide if you deserve to stay in your body or not, and the process of transplanting other people into other people's bodies is very commonplace. So obviously, who can we think that, you know, some bodies are valued a lot more than others for getting a new body? Other people are being heavily policed, and if they're determined to not be taking care of their body properly, or if they're not fitting or deserving of their body, then they can be taken as well out of their body and it be given to someone else. So know the themes going into that, and then just go in and enjoy the action of like a very authoritarian, very steampunky science fiction world that does really feel like our own, because it is our own, just a little bit in the future, I believe. So yeah, I really enjoyed this. I also wanted to talk about the acknowledgements of this book because I did read them. I didn't know until BookTube that that's something that some people don't do, which that's, you know, whatever, to each their own. But I did find it very jarring when I first like entered the bookish internet space and realized like some people don't read prologues, some people don't read epilogues. I understand the epilogue more than the prologue because the prologue gives you like important information, I feel like, maybe to start the story, but whatever. Some people don't read those, some people don't read acknowledgements, which, you know, I think for a lot of books, I think the acknowledgements add something to my understanding of a story sometimes. Or I'm trying to think of another one, like Mary by Nat Casti. That one was one where I loved the book. I read the acknowledgements, and just reading how he had dedicated it to his mother and really wrote it for his mother, and just talking about the different experiences in his life, like that made so much more of an impact for for me. So I do read the acknowledgements. If you don't, you know, they're normally not more than a page or two. So, you know, maybe give the acknowledgements on your next book a try if you don't read them. But for this one, I just, first of all, this book was crafted so well. Like, I could not believe that this is a novel debut. This does not read like a novel debut. And there's nothing wrong with debut books that read like debut books, because obviously everyone has to start somewhere. But just the way that the story was crafted and things were woven in and out, and the world building and all of that, I'm like, this is crazy that this is a debut novel. That's awesome. This author does go by Z Zamzer or she, her, hers, and Z actually has won things for like a novella and I think some short stories as well. So it's not the first thing that this author has written. But in the acknowledgements, I wanted to read a little something for y'all, because it says, it has taken 13 years to reach this literary point. And then it goes on to talk about, you know, writing novels and rejections and the whole publishing process. But it says, my deepest gratitude to Naomi Davis for saying yes. When I was at the edge of pulling the manuscript from the slush piles after receiving confusing, the writing is far superior to most of the material that crosses my desk, but rejections too. I didn't connect to the characters' rejections from agent to agent. It's a miracle that I made it through. So let's talk about that, right? Let's talk about that really briefly. We all know what that is slang for, right? The I didn't connect to the characters, right? I feel like it happens with authors of color. Happens with authors of color, especially like queer authors of color as well, because first of all, like, it's great if you connect to a character. There are characters that I love, that it's so cool to read a character and be like, oh my gosh, that's me, right? But you don't have to feel that way about every single character that you read to enjoy the book. That would be so boring, just reading books where you were the main character the whole time and every single character looked and acted like you. But also, this is criticism that authors do not get when they are writing from a white perspective, from a white straight cis perspective, especially in the sci-fi realm and in the fantasy realm. That really boggles me, because none of us can connect to the characters. None of us can relate to the characters on the fact that I don't know what it's like to ride a dragon. I don't know what it's like to have my soul be taken out of my body and put into another body. None of us do. None of us on this earth know what that's like, which is why it's fiction. Let's have that be homework if we're still thinking like, oh, I don't want to read this book because I can't connect to the characters. Unpack why you think that way and look at the narratives at which you do that to, and unpack that a little bit. Because, for example, Neela and I are different characters, but a lot of the struggles are a pretty universal struggle. Obviously, Neela is, she's a woman in this. She does mention throughout the novel at like brief points that she doesn't really, like, I feel like there's a little bit of gender conversation there for our main character that she never gets to explore because of the society that she is put into. So there are things that I feel like are like universal themes almost that people can identify to, and maybe if you don't, that's like okay too. But also just like reading to just, I don't know what I'm trying to say. I just, because this was not like a planned discussion at all when I finished this very late last night and I read the acknowledgements, but that like really bummed me out, the fact that this was almost not published. This amazing sci-fi book was almost not published because people, you know, maybe saw the author's name. Because the world building, the fact that it takes place in a futuristic version of Botswana, that is not the confusing part to me. I just want to make that clear. Like, that's not the confusing part, having it not set in the United States. It's like the technology and things like that that are interesting, but you want to discover them. I just feel like that's crazy that this author was getting letters like, oh, this is amazing, but not for us, or this is amazing, but we can't connect to this person in a futuristic world. And, you know, who can connect to Luke Skywalker? Who can connect to being a Jedi? Like, if we're gonna use like another sci-fi example, right? Like, none of us can. At the same time, we all can, because there are universal struggles that happen in fiction that no matter what the protagonist looks like, we can find themselves. We can find ourselves in ourselves. So yeah, I did want to point that out in the acknowledgements, because it is very, very crazy that someone could write back being like, oh, I couldn't relate to the main character because on one aspect, None of us can. None of us live in this situation. It's science fiction. It's a fictional story. At the same time, the themes in here of family and chosen family and identity and belonging and the value that society places on all of us, those are pretty universal themes. So yeah, just, you know, if you enjoy sci-fi, go ahead and check this out. This also, wanted to read this little blurb here because Caldwell Turnbull says this is masterful and it eviscerates the genre while surpassing it. So if you want a very, very masterful techno thriller, I could not recommend this one enough. I really, really loved it. The audiobook as well. The audiobook narrator does such a great job of characterizing the different characters and also with like tech voices and AI voices and like all of that stuff. It was a really well done audiobook production as well. So cannot recommend this enough. It does, however, make my next reading update harder to talk about because I'm still struggling through this. I'm still struggling through this. At this point, I'm just being so stubborn. I feel like I should DNF it because it's not working for me. It's not working for me. So here's the thing, the mystery aspect about Misery's best friend, that mystery aspect is what I'm interested in. However, I just feel like it's not even like the main focus of the story. So perhaps I need to DNF this. Actually, you know what? As I was starting to talk about this, we're making this executive decision. This is a DNF because when I finish this, I don't think that my review is going to be quite fair because I went into this knowing this is not a usual type of book that I like. I like vampire stories. I like paranormal stories. However, just this, like, it still does kind of feel like a contemporary romance, if that makes any sense, and just the things that I don't tend to love about the genre. So I don't think that if I finish this and I talk about it and I rate it, that it's very fair to this book because I knew what I was getting into and I started reading it. And if I'm not liking it because of what it is, that doesn't make sense to give it a review. You know, that would not be fair to this book or this audience. So I am gonna DNF this, and that feels like a good decision to make. So DNFing, I was about 200 pages in, so I can't say that I didn't give it a fair shot. I just don't think like this style of genre is going to be for me. So I think like fantasy romance works for me more than paranormal romance because this does feel just like contemporary, except that there's werewolves and vampires involved, which I don't love contemporary books. There has to be like a sci-fi element or a fantasy element or a horror element. So yeah, we're gonna DNF this. That feels very freeing. I feel like I made the right choice there. I'm also still reading The Witchery. I'm enjoying this. This is definitely like a paranormal fantasy in like a magical school setting. I am enjoying it. I am also looking for something like a bit more horror while I'm reading this one. So we're gonna do one of the very, very many library holds that just came in that I have to read for that one. So this one's going good. I want to add like a horror on alongside, maybe as an audiobook while I read this physically, because I think I mentioned before I did try the audiobook and it's just not working for me. So this is going great physically. I'm gonna find an audiobook. I have a plethora of books to choose from now from Libby in terms of audiobooks. So I think what I'm going to do is go into my Libby account and choose the one that needs to get returned first. And I'll read that one. Hopefully it's a horror, so I'll read that as an audiobook. This is a physical book, and those will be the books that are going to take us from the week into the weekend. So that was this very, very lengthy update for Thursday. I'm going to go get to work, get to reading, and I will talk to y'all later with another reading update. Hey friends, happy Sunday. Yesterday I was planning on updating. I always plan on updating during the weekend, and then usually Friday, Saturday, I rarely ever do. So I feel like maybe I should stop having that expectation for myself since I never actually do an update. But me and my partner were very, very productive yesterday. He really did the bulk of it, but it was like one of those days where you wake up and you're like, okay, all of this has to be cleaned. We gotta just like do a complete overhaul. And really, I know it is still February, so a little premature for spring cleaning, but really just do like a huge clean where you just tackle everything. You tackle all those little tiny things that you need to do. Full disclosure, we did still have our tree up. So honestly, just like tackling all of those things, and the weather was really nice, and we opened some windows, burnt a lemon candle afterwards. It was a very productive day, but obviously not a lot of time. Like we just played when he was tackling a lot of it, he was playing some streams in the background. I also was doing some work as well. So when I wasn't working and I was like helping with the cleaning and stuff, it was more of like a music kind of day than an audiobook kind of day. So not a very substantial update. However, I don't remember the last time that I've updated this vlog. So still reading The Witchery, still very much enjoying it. It's good, it's entertaining. I do kind of wish that this would have been, just for like some of the things that are happening, I wish it would have taken place in maybe like a magical school that was like a college, but that's okay. I like it, I'm having fun. I was also looking forward, I think I mentioned in the last update that I was looking for something that was a little bit more horror, but I was going to simply go into my Libby app and choose the ebook or audiobook that had the least amount of time on my loan left. So I did end up doing that. So enjoying this, and then for my next book, I ended up picking up 4 Past Midnight by Stephen King. This is a short story collection that I obviously own the physical copy of. So you may be asking, why did you place a hold on the audiobook for Libby? And I will tell you, because I do typically like reading Stephen King's books physically, because the narrators can be so hit or miss for me. They can be so hit or miss, and I just prefer usually reading his books physically. However, this is a short story collection. It's very large. Honestly, I feel like at least one of these could have been, like if it was any other author, it could have been like a novel published, or at least a novella published on its own. But 4 short stories in here. The first one, The Langoliers, was actually narrated by Willem Dafoe. So that is why I placed a library hold, so I could listen to it. And then I've had it sitting in my Libby account, and it's one where I only had a couple of days left. And if I were to be put back on the holds list, I don't think I would get to this book this year for whatever reason. Probably, honestly, because even though this is very much a backlist book, this came out in the 90s. The first story in this audiobook is narrated by Willem Dafoe, and let me tell you, he did an amazing job. It's probably one of my favorite Stephen King stories. Not necessarily like if I would have read it just physically, I don't think it would have been one of my favorite Stephen King short stories, but the audiobook production with they had some music, they had some atmospheric music, and Willem Dafoe did such an amazing job of really adding the creep factor to the story. Because the first story is about a plane, a red-eye plane. The flight takes off, and our main characters wake up on this plane, and most of the other passengers have vanished. And when they land in a very sort of, it's almost like backrooms, parallel universe sort of thing. So creepy story. Willem Dafoe kicked it out of the park. And honestly, I am going to see if he has done any other audiobooks, because especially for horror, he has a great voice for it, and I had a really enjoyable time listening to that first story. I'm on the second story now, which is Secret Window, Secret Garden. That one is about an author who, this strange man shows up at his house and claims that this author has stolen his story from him. The stories are identical, but the author is published and has published this book before this man claims that he wrote his story. So he's being pestered pestered by this very increasingly violent man. And then there's 2 more after that. So I am hoping to finish this one this weekend. There is something that's just like so weirdly comforting about a Stephen King collection of stories. I think just because Stephen King was one of the authors that really helped me start reading again as an adult, really rekindle my love of reading, my love of horror fiction in particular. Like I'm sure many people who love horror fiction, there's some Stephen King in it all, I feel like, but I've been having fun. So I'm almost done with story 2. It's not narrated by Willem Dafoe. Every single short story in here, there are 4, it's narrated by someone else, which is kind of a bummer, but that's okay. I'm still enjoying the content. And yeah, I know it's huge, but I am really zipping my way through this one because I'm enjoying it. So that's the reading update for today. I anticipate, you know, I don't know, if I had my way and had as much reading time as I would like to have today, I could probably finish at least 1 more short story in For Past Midnight. So we'll have to see. I am closing this vlog off tomorrow, so there will be 1 more reading update. I think based on just the rough cut edits of this vlog, it's getting up to an hour, which is a little on the longer side for me. Mine are usually like 30 to 40 minutes. So yeah, we'll have to see. I guess I was just very chatty in this one, but that's the reading update. I'm enjoying the books I'm reading, and I will check back in tomorrow with the final reading update of this vlog and just to close out the vlog. Hey friends, happy Monday. It is high time to close out this vlog because I was just editing it and it starts on Valentine's Day, so it's been a lot, and I think this video comes out on Wednesday. So yeah, it's been over the course of a lot of February, but yeah, it's a lengthy one. I apologize about that. Hope you grabbed like a fun snack or drink or something. But I had a fun time. A lot of books were read, you know, some that I liked more than others, but I'd say overall, looking back on the books I've read throughout this vlog, I've had a really good time reading overall, which is fantastic. So because this vlog is so long, I am going to keep it short, keep it sweet for the outro, I suppose. But For Past Midnight by Stephen King will go ahead and hold up the spine here so you can see what I'm talking about, so it's not just a random black book here. But I'm really enjoying this. Maybe I shouldn't say maybe, because I'm almost done with the 3rd book or short story. There are 4 short stories in this series, hence For Past Midnight, but I really enjoyed the first 2. The 3rd I'm really enjoying as well, and I heard that the 4th book in this collection, Sundog, is a prequel to Needful Things, which I have read and loved. So this has been a very fun reading experience, especially with the Willem Dafoe of audiobook being the highlight. I feel like in terms of this vlog for reading highlights, I would say The Linklears, narrated by Willem Dafoe, and then also Womb City by Tlotlo Tsamaase. Those were like the 2 books out of everything in this vlog that I would highly recommend. They're definitely my favorite reading experiences of this vlog, but that is going to be it for this one. Definitely a lengthy one. I appreciate y'all watching. Thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give this video a thumbs up, leave a comment down below, subscribe to my channel for all of the bookish and cozy gaming content. Stay safe, stay spooky, and I will see y'all in the next video. Bye!